to Time Monk Radio Network. I'm Gemini, and I have Susan Weed with me this evening to discuss the diagnosis of breast cancer. Hello, Susan. Welcome back to Time Monk Radio to finish up our fourth segment on this very informative discussion of breast cancer and breast health. And if you don't mind reminding people where they can get your book, Breast Cancer, Breast Health, exclamation point.
The Wise Woman Way, go to the wisewomanbookshop.com. It's wise woman, one woman, bookshop.com, and you'll find all of my books, my breast book and my menopause book, and my new book down there, Sexual and Reproductive Health for Men and Women, The Wise Woman Way. What a month it's been. We started off talking about healthy breasts and keeping our breasts healthy. Some wonderful foods and some red clover infusion, yay for lentils, all kinds of ways to keep our breasts healthy. And we questioned whether or not mammograms were really a way to keep our breasts healthy. As a matter of fact, the second week of our month, we really talked in some depth about mammograms and it really taken our breast health into our own hands and infused herbal oils. And yet, all the things we do don't guarantee that we won't find a lump or go for a mammogram and somebody see a shadow. And so last week we talked about what to do with those things, and we talked about some great ways that we can reverse early-stage cancer. And, it does work really well, I find, with the really early-stage cancers. But sometimes, for whatever reason, we're a little deeper in than that, and we really do need to consider what does modern medicine have to offer. Now, one of the things that I really like when I write these books is that I get to be in touch with one of my mentors who I don't know in physical form. Her name is Grandmother Growth, and she has a lot to say. And she always shows up when I'm writing and wants to talk about what I'm writing. And she introduces each one of the chapters, and she has her own names for these things. When we're looking at breast surgery, what she has to say is called She Who Holds the Knife. And she says, it is not enough to cut off your breast, granddaughter. You must also nourish your wholeness at the same time. It is not enough to give up your breast. You must also give up the patterns that you have manifested as cancer. It is not enough, granddaughter, to offer your breast as an appeasement to fear. You must open yourself to a realm that is greater than your fear. We understand that the task we set before you is arduous and difficult, but you must hone yourself. It is yourself that you must make the cutting edge. You are the sharp scissors. You are the steel razor. It is with your own hand that you must grasp the knife and say, I cut this out now. You must not give this over to those who hold the scalpel. You must honor your ability to give death, just as you honor your ability to give life. You must dare to cut cleanly and deep, to pare away all that is not you, not your truth, not your beauty, not your path. Only then will the surgery truly be successful. So, indeed, Grandmother Growth, she just really has her say about things. She wants us to know that we can make any choice at all, so long as we allow that to be a choice that really is empowering us. When it comes to radiation, Grandmother Growth says, fighting fire with fire. The energy of radiation joins the energy of cancer, and it blows the cancer cells apart like supernovas. Tremendous energies will be released in your body from the dying cancer cells and from the high-frequency vibrations of the X-rays. Remember the teachings of energy, my dear. Energy must move. Let it flow. If you hold on to it, you will be damaged. You must keep the energy of radiation moving through your body. Do not let it linger. Claim your own radiance. Stoke your own inner fire. Find your own source of X-rays. We affirm your right to be alive. We urge you to let your passionate self emerge. Do not be the passive receiver of radiation. Instead, participate actively. Use radiation well and wisely. It requires an enormous output from you, but it can be done. And we are with you. And when it comes to chemotherapy, Grandmother Growth says, here is the poisoned apple, dear. Are you going to take a poison to preserve your life? Remember, dear, these poisons are designed to seek out and kill the fastest growing cells. Will these poisons harm you or heal you? It is up to you, granddaughter. You must guide their actions with certainty. Power. It is a game you are playing, poisoning to create health, and there is some skill, but there is an awful lot of luck. Are you betting that your body can repair the damage from these poisons? You've heard that there are those who can eat poison and be unscathed by it. It is true, and we will teach you how to do it, granddaughter. We will nourish your deepness with sweet roots and bitter roots. We will invite you into your power and ask you to grasp the nettle. We will help you gather your resources and then make you take charge. We will make you command the forces of death that you are inviting into your bloodstream. No, we will not let you passively await. We will sing with you the ancient songs, the songs of spinning and spiraling. We will help you walk the path as you stand in the core of your being and bite the poisoned apple. A storm will rage within you, and we will sing with you, granddaughter. We will get done what must be done. These are valid means of healing. Using surgery, using chemotherapy, using radiation. Are they scary? They certainly are. Can they cause damage? They certainly can. My next-door neighbor died at 97 from salivary gland cancer that was caused by the radiation treatments they did on her breast when she was in her 70s. She was very philosophical about it and actually was of the same mind of the doctors, which is, well, I got another good 20 years. That cancer didn't get me. This one did. I've had a great 20 years. We use narrower beams of radiation now. There's not so much collateral damage. And remember, I said I would come back to the oil of St. John's wort or St. John's wort or St. J's if you don't want to take sides. That's Hypericum perforatum. And you know, one of the things I first read about this plant was that it was used during the Crusades by the Crusaders to heal their burns from the boiling oil that was poured on them. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Heals burns. And then, of course, somebody got a sunburn, and I said, why don't you try this red oil, this infused oil that I make from the flowers of Hypericum? And she did, and she said, wow, not only does it take away the pain of the sunburn, but it made my neck feel really good by relieving the muscles, too. I love red oil. You know, when you get radiation treatments, they tell you, don't put any oil on your skin. That's like basting the turkey. It will really fry your skin. And I understand that, and that's why I say to people, look, when you get radiation treatments, don't tell the radiation oncologist that you are putting Hypericum oil on, because it will just freak him out. I had a friend who used the oil, and she had inoperable lung cancer, and she put the oil on about an hour before her radiation treatments, long enough for it to fully sink into the skin. And she had a rather outrageous number of radiation treatments to her upper chest area. And at the end of the treatment, her oncologist looked at her and said, all right, I didn't want to ask when we were doing it because it looked so good and I didn't want you to stop it. What are you doing? He says, this kind of radiation treatment, it fries your skin. There's permanent damage. Your skin gets blackened. It gets so burned. He says, your skin looks like a baby skin. This just cannot be. He said, but the results are showing that the cancer is completely killed. As a matter of fact, whatever you were doing, it seemed to really improve the effect of the radiation. So are you going going to tell me? She said, yeah, I put hypericum oil on my skin. And, of course, the oncologist screamed and said, I can't believe you put oil on it. It'll fry your... Oh, I guess it didn't. So it prevents burns. Radiation is a burn. It allows the radiation to kill the cancer cells, which are very quickly moving. Remember, the cancer cells are young and healthy and rapidly replicating there. But it preserves the other cells. It protects the heart. It protects the lungs. It protects the ribs. Oh, the women who wind up with broken ribs or ribs just disintegrating from the radiation therapy. If only they had used hypericum oil beforehand. Again, about an hour before the radiation treatment. Let it really soak into the skin. And if you feel any burning or lingering pain, certainly you could use hypericum oil afterwards as well. Red oil is an item of commerce. It's easy to buy. I use it as a sunscreen because I'm not doing radiation treatments, but the sun is irradiating me nonetheless. And I was just reading the other day that, well, gosh, getting a tan, it's never really gone out of style, but people are concerned now because they don't want to go out and get a tan because of skin cancer. So then they thought, okay, well, we'll use like a tanning bed. Well, it turns out that you get like worse skin cancer from the tanning bed. So what are you going to do? And there's like these kind of rub-on tans, but they can really streak and you look kind of orange and weird. So the hot new thing, now we are at the cutting edge here, Gemini. The hot new thing is to drink carrot juice and the juice of other plants that has lots of carotenes in them. And then because your body won't be able to use the carotenes from the raw carrots and convert it into vitamin A, your body's going to throw those carotenes out toward your skin, and your skin is going to turn orange. It's going to look like you have a tan if you eat the right things. If you eat enough leafy greens and drink enough carrot juice, then you're going to look like you have a tan. But, hey, what's the whole point of this? The whole point of this is those carotenes absorb the radiation from the radiation treatment. And so this is certainly one of the dodges that I suggest if you are going to get a mammogram, and that's radiation. Well, drink a glass of carrot juice beforehand, or eat a couple of baked sweet potatoes before you go for your mammogram. And you can keep on doing it. The more you load with carotenes, the easier it will be to get that radiation to do little or no damage to you and the parts you want to preserve, but to kill the cancer. Carrot juice, we've discovered, has a compound in it, as well as cooked carrots, that is actually directly able to kill cancer. So, I always kind of like the 2-for-1 deals, don't you? You can drink your carrot juice. It'll help to kill the cancer and get your radiation treatment, and it will help prevent damage to your heart and lungs and ribs from the radiation treatment. I really love the plants for that because they're always offering me so many wonderful things. Now, last time we briefly mentioned 4 really strong herbs: poke, pau d'arco, sundew, and mistletoe. And we talked a little bit about making poke root tincture and about taking poke root tincture and how we start off with 1 drop. And what I usually suggest is that 1 drop, and then the next day 1 drop, and then on the 3rd day 2 drops, and on the 4th day 2 drops, and on the 5th day 3 drops. And you're getting the pattern. Every other day we're increasing the amount of poke tincture by a drop. Now, when I take 4 drops or more of poke tincture, I get slightly nauseated. I don't like the way it feels in my body, and I get visual disturbance. I remember once, I don't even remember exactly why, but I took some poke tincture in class. I guess we were talking about it, and somebody said, oh, it's a poison that will kill you. And I said, no, it's not, and I took a couple of drops. But maybe I took more than a couple of drops because I remember looking at that class, and I couldn't tell if there were 4 people or 400 people or 40 people. I could tell they were people, but wow, it was like looking through a kaleidoscope, and was I ever glad the effect had before I had to drive home.
Oh, no.
So if you start to get visual disturbances or diarrhea or upset gut, then you've taken too much poke and dropped back by a drop. And that would be a safe dose for you. And I mentioned the man who was like taking 15 drops a day until it got to his kidneys. So if you do take it and you are feeling any pain in your kidneys or any sensation in your kidneys, just stop with the poke. There's the same substance that's found in asparagus. It's called asparagine. And most people, when they eat asparagus, they pee out the asparagine, and it's got a really strong smell.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not enough of it in the poke for you to smell it usually, but it can kind of accumulate in the kidneys, and it is one of the dangerous aspects of the poke. The sundew and the mistletoe are both herbs that are usually, at this point, used in clinical settings. And, of course, because of what goes on in the United States, it's not really easy to get these treatments because they're not usually available. The sundew of these two most dangerous, most active ones is possibly the easiest to use. Both poke and pau d'arco you can get hold of, although it's not easy to get good pau d'arco, and it can be difficult to get poke root. But sundew is usually made with an extract of equal parts of sundew juice and grain alcohol and just enough distilled water to blend it. And even at the very lowest dose, which is just 1 to 3 drops, there can be some irritation. It's an endangered plant. It's hard to cultivate, but it's a very well-studied anti-cancer herb. And what's interesting is that Venus's flytrap is also used in this way, but the sundew is far better because the Venus flytrap is quite endangered. The sundew is not as endangered. And the sundew is active when it's taken orally, but the Venus flytrap is not. So if you wanted to experiment with a really powerful anti-cancer herb, that's certainly an option for you.
Susan,
I've known a couple of people who have been diagnosed with cancer and have decided that they wanted to use mistletoe. And mistletoe has been used clinically in Europe for the treatment of breast and other cancers since 1926. It is usually injected under the skin near the tumor, but the tincture can also be used orally as a systemic treatment. Now, let me be clear. Do not go out and start picking mistletoe, because it's the European mistletoe that is used, and the American mistletoe is just too poisonous to use. So you can make a mistletoe tincture from European mistletoe, but doesn't grow in the United States, so you better be in Europe. And it's said that mistletoe works by causing an inflammatory reaction, which then walls off the tumor and allows the body to kind of get rid of it. And again, this is when it's injected under the skin, and I have known women to have successful treatments, even of very serious breast cancer, in using mistletoe treatment. So certainly worth trying. Chemotherapy, as we know, can be really hard on the liver. And my friend Betsy, who we talked about in her story Off My Chest, is in my book, Breast Cancer, Breast Health, The Wise Woman Way. And I was visiting her, and she took me to her oncologist, who wanted to meet me and thank me for telling her to take milk thistle seed tincture before each round of chemotherapy. He showed me her charts, and he said, we were able to give her the chemotherapy throughout the treatments, and often with this kind of cancer, because we have to use such heavy-duty drugs, we can't do the whole treatment because the liver just fails. He says, but look at these liver results. Her liver did great throughout this whole treatment. He says, as a matter of fact, we were able to even up the dose a little so that we could be pretty sure that we were really getting it all because her liver was doing so well. And he says, I know it's because of what you suggested to her. And I have found that more and more oncologists are hearing about milk thistle seed tincture. So this is a kind of thistle. It's a big thistle. And yeah, it's got those sharp, pointy leaves. And the leaves actually look like milk has spilled on them, which is why it's called milk thistle. It has like these beautiful white patterns. It can get really big. Oh my gosh, I've seen a milk thistle that was like 5 feet across and 7 feet tall. And they have these beautiful, thistle flowers, like the emblem of Scotland, the thistle flower. And they're followed by seeds, and they're in this kind of thing like a burdock burr. And you have to get those seeds. That means the seeds you tincture. If you don't want to do all that work, you can just buy milk thistle seed and make your own tincture. Or if you don't even want to do that much work, you can just buy milk thistle seed tincture already made. And the tincture protects the liver. So it is much better to take it before the chemotherapy than afterwards. If you forget, you could take it afterwards, but the studies that I've seen definitely show that it's much more effective when taken beforehand. Like putting on the hypericum oil about an hour beforehand is a good time frame, but if you can't pull that off, even a couple of hours beforehand would still be good enough. There are other specific herbs that I mentioned in my book, Breast Cancer, Breast Health, that can help you deal with the side effects of individual and specific chemotherapies, each of which has its own way of dealing with what's going on in your body. And there was a woman who came to me and she said, look, this cancer is going to kill me, but my children want me to have the chemotherapy, so I'll do it. She said, but I'm a little embarrassed to admit it to you, but I am so vain, you know. I just don't want to die bald. Is there anything you could possibly give me that would help protect my hair follicles and yet let the chemotherapy do its work on the cancer? And I said, I think stinging nettle would help you. And the cancer did kill her, but she did have a beautiful full head of hair because she drank her stinging nettle infusion. So even when we're doing chemotherapy or radiation or surgery, we can continue to drink our nourishing herbal infusions, and they will really help carry us through some of the hardest of these things. It can be very difficult to even have the energy to nourish yourself when you're doing chemotherapy or radiation or in the days just following surgery. And that's when our nourishing herbal infusions really jump up there. Some people are concerned about the phytoestrogens in red clover, and especially if they have a diagnosis of breast cancer, and that diagnosis says that cancer is an estrogen feeder. But again, remember back to our early conversation this month that the estrogens in red clover are not already estrogens, are actually phytosterols, and they have to be bioconverted into estrogens by gut flora, and that when they are then converted, they are short-fat estrogens that actually block the receptor site and keep the cancer from eating. So no worry of any kind about using our red clover infusion, even if we have a diagnosis of cancer. As a matter of fact, I would probably drink more if I had a diagnosis of cancer. And the nettle infusion, as we recall, one of the leading anti-cancer herbs of South America, burdock root infusion, all work just fine. Whatever you can tolerate or drink, you're going to get a lot of nutrition from the infusion. So if you just can't face solid food, that's okay. Between your infusions and some yogurt, you should be doing pretty well there. You know, surgery is always more traumatic than we think it's going to be. And generally a lot more traumatic than the surgeons make it out to be. And reconstruction surgery is really a fairly big issue. Many surgeons really push reconstruction surgery. But what I would say is probably more to the point is if you really want to look pretty good after your breast surgery, hire a plastic surgeon along with your breast surgeon and have your plastic surgeon put you back together again. A woman told me just the other day that her breast surgeon did a great job but just really didn't know how to bring the skin together, and the skin sloughed off and left a raw and open wound, and she wound up then having to hire a plastic surgery to repair the damage, and she wished she had just hired the plastic surgeon in the first place to come in after the breast tumor has been removed, after the breast has been removed, whatever's going to happen, and do that repair work. I was working with a woman who suddenly fell on the ground screaming in agony. I had no idea what was happening. I didn't think people who had strokes usually screamed. And when she finally got herself together, I said, my gosh, what happened? And she said, oh, it's my breast. I'm like, what could possibly make your breast hurt like that? Well, she had been told that she was the perfect candidate for a reconstruction in which they take your belly fat and make a breast out of it. Now, what woman wouldn't like her belly fat turned into her breast when they've just cut her breast off? This just seems like perfect, doesn't it? But what they didn't tell her was actually they take a part of the muscle, the muscle that allows you to sit up from your belly and roll that up in your breast. And that muscle would go into spasms and knock her on the ground in screaming pain.
Oh, gosh.
And, of course, she couldn't sit up anymore. She said, it's really awkward getting out of bed because you can't bring yourself to an upright position.
Wow.
So, we did the meditation last time about our breasts, and I really want to open it to include women who don't have breasts to do that meditation as well. If you have sacrificed your breasts, if you have done what the Amazons did and given your breast away, I invite you to be proud of what you've done, to feel the strength of what you've done, and to do the meditation with the memory of your breasts. And if that at first brings tears and grief, let them flow. But know that eventually, that out of that grief and out of that pain will come that inner sense of strength. I have a wonderful poster, I bet you've seen it, of a woman who's had one breast removed, and rather than to have that breast replaced with some kind of artificial breast, she chose to have a beautiful tattoo done over the scar.
That's nice. No, I have seen that picture.
Yeah. So this is what we're talking about, that we can love ourselves exactly as we are, whether we have one breast, two breasts, no breasts, whether we have supernumerary nipples. I once had a lover had a supernumerary nipple because, of course, we are mammals, and often mammals have rows of nipples. So we could theoretically even have three breasts, although usually you don't go to the breast, it's just the nipple there. But this wonderful, loving self-acceptance, which really, to me, is one of the things that cancer brings. And, of course, we must acknowledge and bow our head to the fact that death walks here, that cancer can be a wake-up call, but cancer can also be a it's time for me to leave call. And I refer back again to my wonderful mentor, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was so clear that no one should die in pain, and that if we're going to heal, we need to get rid of the pain. And Elizabeth, we're so thankful to you that you insisted that morphine was suitable for people who are dying of cancer and that they shouldn't be in pain. I remember friend of my friend Betsy, who did die of breast cancer, and toward the end she said, "Put me in the arms of Morpheus. It is time for my morphine. It is time for me to walk that way." I had another friend who was diagnosed with metastatic cancer, but who didn't die, but who became addicted to morphine. And I said to him, you know what, it's okay. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross thought it was okay too. Sometimes we will addict people to morphine, and they will beat their cancer because we relieve their pain enough. But we must acknowledge that sometimes the music ends and the dance is over. And that in the wise woman tradition, death is okay. Death is, we might even say, the final kind of dance, that we are dancing yet another turn around the spiral. In the scientific tradition, we are going to fight against death, tooth and nail, because it is the enemy. In the heroic tradition, well, it's an awful shame if you die. I guess you weren't good enough or didn't take care of things good enough. But in the wise woman tradition, we open our arms to that last dance, that dance with death. We're drinking our nourishing herbal infusions, and we're having our last laugh. Does that mean that we are going to use everything that science can throw at our cancer? Maybe it does, and maybe it doesn't. I'm thinking of my friend Julianne Kuzi, who was diagnosed with ovarian cancer and threw everything in the book at it, and it went into remission. But when it came back 6 years later, Julianne said, this time I'm going to dance right off the stage with it. We're not throwing anything at it, and I want you all to pray that my release be with laughter. So we've come full cycle from keeping our breasts healthy to looking at ways to prevent cancer, to looking at how we can be more powerful in our own health care, to alternative treatments that we could use instead of surgery, chemotherapy, or radiation, to integrative treatments that we can use if we choose those things, and then to the possibility of opening our hearts and opening our arms to death as a dancing partner and saying, yes, this is the next step in my spiral.
That's lovely, Susan. A very refreshing perspective.
Thank you, Gemini. What a lot of talk we've done this month about breaths. I look forward to coming back and spending more time with you next. What are we talking about next month? Do you know?
I don't know. And I do have a quick question for you, and it could turn into another segment. I don't know. I don't know that it's going to be a quick answer, but I've read that 5% of men are diagnosed with breast cancer. Can the information that we've discussed this last month, can they do the same type of treatments and oils?
Exactly the same kinds of things.
Okay.
Absolutely. Whether it's a man or a woman or somebody who hasn't quite made up their mind yet, who has
Okay.
breast cancer. All of these things, yes, are both specific enough to breast cancer, but general enough that both men and women can use them.
Wonderful. Okay, that's good to know.
All right. Well, I guess it's a mystery, and we'll all find out, everybody.
Yes, we will.
Next, we'll bring. It'll be fun, and it'll be green blessings that we know.
Thank you, Susan.
Bye-bye.
Next week, we start a new segment of our health and wellness series with topics of digestion from start to finish. We expect this series to cover the next 8 weeks. Susan will start the first segment discussing digestion in the beginning, appetite, aroma, and taste, the guardians of our lives. Be sure to join us. On behalf of Time Monk Radio, be well.